What's up, Batmax? Yeah, President Trump executive action impacting LGBTQ plus health. Starting on the first day of his second term, Trump began issuing numerous executive orders. This is not what I was looking for. What the fuck? Thank you. I had it up like 3 seconds ago. You're gonna have to give me a second. Trump trans people in prisons. Conversion therapy. Oh, is this all of it? Hold on. Here we go. To establish professional guidelines for mental health and evaluation treatment, inmates meeting the diagnostic criteria for gender dysphoria to assist their progress towards recovery while reducing or eliminating frequency or severity of symptoms associated with negative outcomes. Prioritize mental health care in the treatment of gender dysphoria, emphasizing assessment of comorbid psychiatric condition and collection of past medical records. Hold on, I thought I heard my. I thought I heard my cat throwing up. I gotta find. I literally just had an article pulled up like 3 seconds ago. Hold on. Let me do some content stealing right now. I gotta find the article. Yeah, it's on Advocate, right? No. Oh, it's on Substack. Transitics. Dot substack.com/p/the Trump administration is testing. There we go. I never noticed the amount of detail your model has. Yeah, sometimes it scares me. I always forget about it. But yeah, the Trump administration is testing conversion therapy by medically experimenting on trans people in prisons. Last Thursday, the Trump admin released new policy outlining how it will treat transgender people in the Bureau of Prisons custody. Under it, approximately 2,200 trans people held in federal prison will be denied access to medically necessary health care, subjected to constant misgendering by staff, and have all of their gender-affirming items, including binders, bras, and makeup, confiscated. Instead, the policy will impose a treatment that targets psychological distress through psychotherapy and psychiatric medication. Until the gender dysphoria can be marked as resolved, and additionally, new policy designates gender dysphoria as a mental illness that requires routine mental health care. To ensure inmates diagnosed with gender dysphoria receive timely, appropriate mental health services and individual treatment programming as clinically indicated, treatment should target psychological distress dysphoria as well as occurring mental health disorders and be tailored to the unique needs of the inmate. To allocate sufficient staff and resources. This is insane. This is insane. I wonder if I can take a look. Boards will establish a multidisciplinary approach. Clinical encounter note. I'm looking for like a medication list. If I can get treatment. Defending women for gender ideology, extremism, recording biological truth. The government, yep, Nazi shit. Prohibits the Bureau from expanding federal funds for any medical procedure, treatment, or drug for the purpose of conforming an inmate's appearance to that of the opposite sex to the extent of consistent with applicable law. which that was passed as an executive order. Inmates currently receiving hormones to address gender dysphoria shall review and disapprove the treatment or tapering plan submitted by a primary care provider for all such inmates. Each tapering plan shall consider appropriate factors such as the duration the inmate has been receiving hormones to address gender dysphoria, and initial rationale for receiving the hormone injection, the response to the inmate, the intervention, whether the inmate has undergone sex trait modification surgery. So we are just going to be, this is fucking bullshit. Yeah, I mean, it's just, we are going to just be experimenting on prison inmates from now on. Bureau will not provide social accommodations, which they have been doing, including inmates diagnosed with gender dysphoria. Severity. Yeah, this is insane Nazi level shit. Like, this is holy fuck bad. Policy makes the fact clear. The first is actually the BOP didn't write a large chunk of this policy, rather it copied significant portions from policy that Florida implemented in September 2024. Many places, word for word. Yeah, the Florida law was also insane. It is a very, very, very bad thing, considering the BOP policy unnecessarily incorporates HHS language, implements RFK solution to gender dysphoria. The Bureau has clearly consulted with doctors. It is likely that the medical term in question was the HHS, which already establishes pushing conversion therapy. So we're going to be forcing inmates to go through conversion therapy. Oh yeah, and also like we've already removed rape protections for trans prisoners across the country. Voluntary consent of the human subject is absolutely essential. Yeah, obviously Nuremberg stuff. This is bad. This is really, really bad. So we're gonna force people to stop taking medications with a rapid tapering. And the thing is, this will really mess with people's hormone levels. People will be getting really, really sick. They do not care. It is a war on trans people that the Trump administration wants to have going for a long, 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 long time. And Democrats gave up on this. I don't see anything ever potentially good coming from this except for the death of trans people. Here we go. What are we on about, Fox? Base 44, just go away.
But first, the Trump administration's latest move. It is now issuing a new policy aimed at ending transgender-related care for inmates in federal prisons. The president, once again, delivering on his
all three trans federal prisoners
in America. Hello, everyone. This is Outnumbered. I'm Emma.
Holy shit, she's so excited about conversion therapy. Oh my God.
Emily Compagno here with my co-host, Harris Faulkner. And also joining us today, Kennedy, host of the Kennedy Saves the World podcast, Cheryl Casoni, Fox Business anchor and host of American Dream Home on Fox Business, and Guy Benson, Fox News political analyst and host of the Guy Benson Show on Fox
Guy
News.
Benson, what a name.
Now, according to the new policy from the Bureau of Prisons, it, quote, will not provide sex trait modification surgeries to address gender dysphoria. The move builds on an executive order that President Trump signed last year aimed at terminating these procedures. An excerpt from that reads this, quote, the federal prison system shall ensure that no federal funds are expended for any medical procedure, treatment, or drug for the purpose of conforming an inmate's appearance to that of the opposite sex. Now, it's a full circle moment for the infamous ad in the 2024 election when President Trump highlighted then Vice President Kamala Harris's position on this issue. Watch.
Every transgender inmate in the prison system would have access.
Kamala is for they, them. President Trump is for you.
But
What
the
an ad.
ACLU is now pushing
What
back,
an
arguing
ad.
that the new policy
That ad
disregards
is
the
pretty
medical needs
funny.
of the inmates and would be, quote, dangerous. But right now, 5 states are introducing laws to scale back their gender treatment policies. This includes Kansas, Idaho, Utah, Oklahoma, Florida.
Yep, we know those states. We know those states quite well, chat.
Even in Democrat strongholds like New York City and Massachusetts, top hospitals are now ending their trans youth programs. Guy, let's sort of start.
And all of this is because Democrats ceded the issue. All of this is because Democrats ceded the issue. Democrats gave up defending trans people. They just let Republicans attack and assault trans people. It never backed up any of, or never defended any of their constituents.
Broadly with your thoughts on this, and then we can dig into the details.
So I want to start on the politics, because the clip of the ad that we played, that was, according to the Trump campaign, their most effective ad in the 24 cycle. That broke through a lot of the noise, and I think exposed Kamala Harris as quite extreme on these issues. And it was a shortcut for voters to say, okay, that person is out of step.
Because they don't care. Yeah, that's true. Democrats only care about this capital as much as Republicans do. Like, if we would have had that's why people can't go after Mamdani. Mamdani has always been supportive of trans people without any question. And that's why I was so disappointed when what's his name from Iowa was what's his name running for governor of Iowa. Oh, not Brad Sherman, because he's the Republican. Iowa auditor. Rob Sand. Rob Sand saying that I don't believe biological men should be in women's sports. Like, that was such a weak fucking response. Because shit like this happens because Democrats don't stand up against transphobic attacks. They completely ceded the issue to the Republicans because they wanted to try and pull in as many people as possible. But guess what? That doesn't work. That just lets the Republicans pick up more wins.
With me. There's an interesting story that I saw just in the last couple of days from Politico, I believe, that quoted a bunch of Democrats getting angry at these activist groups on these questions, forcing their candidates to fill out questionnaires in support of things like these types of policies. And what the Democrats have been saying is, you're putting us in a bad position, guys. We want to support these positions that I think a lot of Americans disagree with, but we don't want to write them down to have that stance used against us in a general election. So I think this will probably put more pressure on that front and add to that political dilemma that Democrats are facing.
I think there are a lot of problems within the federal prison system, and there are a lot of ways that politicians could work together on both sides of the aisle. And, you know, it's not to say, like, prison should be great and fun and super easy, but it also shouldn't be torturous and draconian, and there are no conjugal visits, and there is no way to achieve parole in the federal prison system. And maybe an all-or-nothing approach is going too far. So maybe, you know, if you have inmates who have been incarcerated for a long time and, you know, they have been reliant upon hormone therapy, maybe that's a different class of people than the guys who are like, oh, wait, I can just say I'm a woman and I go to a women's prison, and, you know, there's
It never happened in the ever history of prison.
some people who have been accused of sexually assaulting their female fellow inmates, and obviously that's wrong. And I think there are some times where you have to see that there are subtleties. And I actually think the president has been really, really good on criminal justice and reforming the system in positive ways. And I think in order to make a political statement, you don't want to go too far, because what's going to happen is you're going to have people like Gavin Newsom that are going to force the pendulum in the opposite direction, and he is going to defend all of the people who might be affected by this new policy.
Yeah, Harris.
Well, it's interesting. That's an excellent point, by the way, Kennedy, like you always make.
God,
and to
Harris
further
is
that
so
idea,
annoying.
So if you give an opening for the left to come in and say, well, you don't care about these people, so on and so forth, that's not what this is about. This is about holding the line and protecting other people. You talk about the rapes in prison. It hasn't happened just a couple of times. It's a problem. This addresses that. But Trump has done the one thing as a president that we always know he does. He's got everybody talking. And so now there will be this, whatever it will look like, to try to, whether it's an argument, debate, whatever it is, to try to get to a point. And look, we need to do something. because you tacitly as a government are saying, local and federal, you're saying, yeah, gender identity and however you want to be will you put you wherever you think you need to be. Governments don't need to be doing that. We have science that helps doing that.
By the way, I know everybody here is smart enough to know this, but transgender women are far more expected to be sexually assaulted than sexually assault. 58% of trans women who are placed with male inmates are sexually assaulted. There we go.
And so this kind of forces that back into the conversation, I would think. So if you're 6'5" and you're a dude, but you identify a different way, calling you whatever name, that's fine. Give us your first name, but you have to go to the men's prison. And now feelings aren't part of that, you know, your personal opinion, your politics, none of that. It would just be the law. But like Kennedy said, you have to be careful not to overreach because then you won't accomplish anything.
Well, I mean, I think the political discussion, I think, is fascinating in all of this. I agree with you. On the financial side, because you know me, I hate to see taxpayer dollars wasted. I was looking at the Federal Bureau of Prisons policies, how much they have spent over the last several years. They did some congressional testimony back in 2023, and they talked about how much they had spent on actually this kind of care. What they said was it was about $153,000 on gender-affirming hormone therapy. There was one surgery I found in 2022 under the Federal Bureau of Prisons.
$153,000.
But within this executive order, and I think this is actually a good thing from the president, they are going to continue to offer counseling, antidepressants. I don't have a problem with that, in particular with some of the violence we have seen in the last few weeks. On the other side of this, though, is that, you know, as far as blanket policy,
out of billions
what
of
the
dollars
states have been doing, there is, I think, some egregious overreach, whether it is not just the medical side of this, but also the pronouns, you know, looking at what they were doing in Oklahoma and Utah. You're putting this into federal policy and workforce policy. That, I think, bothers me more than anything else, because you're dictating how you're supposed to be acting in your quote-unquote office setting, which, as you know, can be a government office, just like it can be a corporate office. And don't get me started on how many corporations have said enough is enough with all of this. Yeah. And it's very clear.
Just one quick thing, because you mentioned the hospital systems changing their policy with kids. To me, that is a whole separate issue.
Yes.
This is unscientific. These experiments they've been doing on children, much of the West,
God damn!
following the actual science, has sprinted away from these experiments. The United States has lagged behind, I think, because of politics and ideology. It is long overdue to stop this for children. Adults are a different, thornier question.
I want to sort of also make sure that viewers understand exactly where we are and how we got here. So this is all born out of the 8th Amendment, which ensures and should, you know, that the courts uphold to ensure medically necessary treatment for inmates. And we want that, right? We want that inmates under the care of the BOP. We want to make sure that they are being taken care of.
You just want your
So
slaves
since then,
being
however,
taken
there's
care
been a
of.
patchwork of court decisions at the federal level and never at the top that disagree on what is medically necessary. I'm sure you guys can, you know, predict which states like Oregon deem transgender changes as medically necessary and other states say no, it's not. Now the gamut goes up until and includes surgeries. And what I appreciate about this executive order, to your point, is that this is saying if someone has gender dysphoria, then we will provide counseling and antidepressants to it. So indeed providing, in my opinion, adequate and necessary
woke.
medical care for them.
It's pronouns.
It's these rogue states and district courts that have been determining what is medically necessary means a complete sex change. Now,
That isn't even bad for the government. Yeah, I mean, the Federal Bureau of Prison System uses billions and billions and billions of dollars a year.
Secondly, there's a legal and constitutional protection for inmates that arrive to prison with a pre-existing condition. So to Kennedy's point, those that inside or after the conviction say, oh, guess what, I'm a woman, get to benefit from the generosity of those patchwork quilt court decisions and from the generosity of our tax dollars that say, oh, sure, you're telling me you're Sally now? Well, we're going to approve that. So this EO also takes that into account and says those that have come to the table in this certain way, sure, we will provide that continually. This, by the way, only affects about 1,000 inmates in the system. So the amount of litigation, our tax dollars, and time that have been wasted.
So the 1,000 inmates across the entire federal system of hundreds of thousands of millions of people, and it's a real problem? Yeah, okay. I will never forgive the Democrats for ceding the issue of transgender rights to Republicans. I genuinely never will never forgive them for that. They didn't have to, and they still did. Completely fucking evil people.